Popcorn Talk fans, welcome to iTalk Movies with one of the stars of the new movie Butterfly Caught in studio live right now, Adam Ambruso.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk, we talk movie. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's iTalk Movie.
I want something just like this.
This is the way to bring it in.
Right.
If you don't like Coldplay and you don't like Chainsmokers, change the channel.
That's right.
That's a joke. But stay with us. Welcome to Popcorn Talk. My name is Michael Rippe. I'm your host. You can find me on social media at Mike Rips, and I'm joined by the star, one of the leads of the new movie Butterfly Caught, live in studio right now, Adam Ambruso.
Yes.
It's really awesome to have you, and also thank you for that song recommendation. If you don't know, that was Coldplay and the Chainsmokers, and that just brought us to another level.
Yes.
We both already like that song. That's amazing.
Right. Awesome.
So we're going to play the trailer for you guys on the new movie Butterfly Caught, which will be out in about another month in studios in just a minute. But I want to give everyone, if you don't know about the movie, a little synopsis. It's about basically three beautiful aspiring actresses embarking on a mission to break into the competitive LA acting scene, only to discover the road leading to stardom comes at a price. And finally, a movie that depicts the brutal truth while serving as an inspiration to struggling artists everywhere. Would you say that's correct as a synopsis?
That was better than I could say it.
Well, there you go. All right, so let's play the Butterfly Caught trailer right now, and we'll watch it.
Two potential outcomes for you as an actor. One, you will succeed. Or two, you'll quit. That's right. This town feasts on inspiring people. It teases you. It distracts you. And eventually it reminds you you're not good enough. I'm telling you this to challenge you. To go out there and to hustle.
You ready to make a movie?
Defeat this city before it defeats you. The real secret to all of this is survival. The pace is fast. The industry is cruel. You don't keep a thick skin, it will consume you. Can you outperform and outlast that person sitting next to you?
Okay. That's a riveting trailer.
Isn't that fun?
So you play Randy.
I do.
Brazen character, yeah?
Yeah. Very, very lucky to play that character. I fought really hard for it.
Right. So tell us about it.
You mean that the role of Randy or
The role of Randy.
You know, when I first, my producing partner, my now producing partner, who at the time was my acting coach, gave me that script as kind of like my first thing that we were going to do together. Because I told him I wanted to produce 30 movies with me, and he took me seriously. And I read that script, and he was like, you know, read the script and let me know if there's a character that you think you'd like to do. Immediately, I read the role of Randy, and he's one of the main leads, and I thought, wow, this guy's me. I've got to play this. I've got to play this guy. How am I going to make this happen? You know. But he is the sort of guy you're rooting for throughout the movie. You know, there's a lot of flawed characters in this movie, and he's sort of the central good guy with altruistic intentions that is really trying to kind of right the wrongs of the world and have a balanced life at the same time. And I just resonated with that because I feel like that's kind of who I am. I feel like I'm, in many ways meant to better the world, help people. And I just really felt like, I really understood him, and he was sort of a version of me.
So the character that you're playing, he's a cop, right?
He is a police officer that gets promoted to SWAT.
To SWAT, okay.
Yeah.
It's intense. As we saw in the trailer, fast-paced, riveting, action-packed, it appears. It just got announced you have a date, it sounds like, for early September, right?
Yeah, second week of September, it will come out in theaters.
Second week of September, I'm there.
Awesome.
This has been showing across the country, starting at different film festivals. I think it won, 12 film festival awards already?
I think so, yeah, and counting. It seems
counting,
like
right?
every time we go to a film festival that's not a major where they're playing studio films, we will win something, either Best Feature or Audience Award or both. And oftentimes we'll get a Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor nomination as well.
Right,
So,
and you started it where it won Best Ensemble Film at 2017 San Diego.
yeah, we got Best Ensemble Cast.
Best
so that was
Ensemble
pretty cool.
Cast. That is really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And you've just been winning awards since then. And now you guys can see it in early September. It will actually be playing in New York at the New York Latino Film Festival between August 22nd and 26th. I saw you can get tickets for that. If you're in New York, definitely want to check that out. The movie, how long did filming take?
Filming, actually, just principal filming took, about 24 days.
And
I
were you
think.
filming here in Los Angeles? Where did you film?
We were. Manny Rodriguez, who has become a close friend of mine, is the writer-director and one of the producers. And Sony got behind him. He's a first-time director, and they donated all of the Sony lot to him, and all of their post-production facilities, all of their equipment, cameras, grip equipment. So we were shooting on the Sony F55 camera with 8K sensors, which if you're into filming, is extremely expensive. So we shot the majority of the film at Sony, and then we had some off-site locations. We even used my house as the there's a kind of the bad director that takes advantage in the film, and we used my house as his pad. Okay. So we had some various on set locations that were off of Sony, but we shot the whole thing in Los Angeles.
And you said this is Manny Rodriguez's first.
This was his first film.
And
he's just been killing it. And he's
incredible.
now he's in preparation of a second film.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
As far as you talk about dealing with acting and when it relates to films, like, do you watch the film once it's done? Are you an actor that likes to create their character and the film and then not look at it or see the end product, or how do you kind of deal with it?
That's a good question. It's very difficult. I find it, like many people, very difficult to see myself on screen and watch myself as an actor. But I also think you're shortchanging yourself if you don't make yourself do that, because you can really study yourself and find out what are you doing right and wrong, or what would you change, or how would you improve. Not necessarily wrong, that's a judgment call, but how can you fine-tune what you're doing. But the first time I watched myself in this film, it was very difficult. I just kept thinking, I would have done that differently. You're just really critiquing. I'm very difficult or hard on myself. Once I got past that, I had to watch it many times now, because I had to go around the country. I've been promoting it at various different locations, and now I'm able to watch it. I'm able to enjoy the film, and I'm able to also look at my performance from a sort of unbiased perspective and make some choices.
So the title is Butterfly Caught.
Yes.
Where's that come from?
It comes from the idea that a young, innocent woman is very much like a butterfly. And I think the main reason we chose butterfly is because there's a metamorphosis that occurs for a butterfly to emerge. And we feel like the lead character of this film is very much like that. And that in the end, she becomes a butterfly, but there's a very, it's a very difficult process for a butterfly to occur. It's very painful. And the experiences that she has to go through to become that butterfly that eventually flourishes is a lot of pain and a lot of learning.
So say you guys were sitting in the room, with Manny and whoever else, and you came up with the name Butterfly Caught, and you went to license it or kind of choose that, and they said, no, sorry, Butterfly Caught's taken. What's the name of the movie?
That's a good question. Me too? No, I'm kidding. I think that, I didn't, obviously I'm not the writer, and I didn't have the privilege of getting to name the film, but I would imagine an alternative name possibly could be.
I'm putting you all right on the spot.
I know, that's
everybody.
That's a good one.
It's okay if you don't have the name. It's fine.
That's such a cool name that he came up with. I guess you'd have to do something like. Good
guy Randy.
No, like Oh man, I don't even know. That's a good question. I have to think about that now. I have to think about that.
I'm right here.
That's the hardest question I've been asked
here-
so far.
Well, that's good. Most surprising development while making the film.
Surprising development while making it.
While making it.
You mean it for the film as a whole or for me?
Both. Either.
Most surprising thing that I encountered in the film was the difficulty in pulling off an action scene. I always figured it would be difficult only because you're trying to figure out how to make it look real. But I remember during that, there's a key scene that you see me with a gun and kind of destabilizing or stabilizing a very volatile situation. And I remember doing that scene was technically like extremely difficult. Forget making it look real and having true emotions and remembering your lines. But I remember, walking towards the quote unquote villain and having to not trip over cords, walk around a camera that was in my way, not be able to look at him while I delivered my lines because it didn't look real, and I had to look to the right of him, and I actually had to point the gun to the left of him because it didn't look real when I pointed the gun at him. So I'm like looking over there, putting the gun here, trying not to trip, and then trying to have this emotional, real scene with him, and it was like 4 a.m. I'd been waiting on set for like 4 hours, and I literally fell asleep in a car, and they like woke me up for this extremely. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is extremely difficult. This is what they have to do.
And this is beautiful, and that's what we love here at Popcorn Talk and iTalk Movies, is when you get behind the curtain, because when you watch the trailer or you see, you're in the theater and you watch these action scenes especially, and you say, wow, it's incredible. You don't realize how difficult it can be to actually make that scene come to life and be so flawless, and now you're giving the color, like it looks so real and so authentic, and then really you're describing perfectly how difficult or the impediments and what you're actually dealing with making that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to hear. I mean,
it's kind of fun, yeah,
right.
to get a little back, inside scoop on what's
middle
going
of the
on.
night, you're just waking up, you got to look this way, you're trying to pretend it's this way. I mean, you see it as a moviegoer and it all looks perfect and flawless, but you actually don't sometimes in the moment realize to think, man, how difficult was that to actually make, not just have things blow up or this and that, but just from person to person. And you're describing the way that you had to do your cut, and it's like, think about all the actors and actresses watching and what they're doing at the same time to make these movies come to life.
Absolutely, well said. And what's interesting is I'm just remembering in that time, I'm thinking I pulled it all off, and then all of a sudden he goes cut, and then gun control, who's watching my move to make sure I'm operating the gun as someone would do on an LAPD. He's like, put your finger over here, and I was like, oh shoot, I missed the one finger. So then it's recut the whole thing. And so it's so
Details.
Technical, crazy.
Yeah. Amazing. We really love that little clip right there. Cool. So you mentioned this already, and I want to ask you about it. You talked about Will Wallace.
Yep.
Your mentor / now he's a director producer in the film, or he's in the movie as well.
So Will Wallace, good question.
Yeah.
I love when people ask me about him and I get to talk about him because he's been so instrumental in my life, and he's always said, hey, did you mention me? And I'm like, so I love when people ask me, so I get to actually mention him. Yeah. Terrence Malick, who you might know, who's responsible for films like Badlands, Thin Red Line, Tree of Life, is his stepfather, and he oftentimes gets overshadowed by his stepfather, but Will Wallace in his own right is a pretty significant force in Hollywood. He's done over 30 films as a producer and a director, and he has a pretty prolific acting class, and I was a student of his of his acting class for a while, and now we are producing partners, and we actually have a film fund together, and we've become extremely close. He is a mentor and become a great friend, and he's been responsible for pushing my career forward, and he's been instrumental.
So my question is, and you mentioned this, you told him he's going to make 30 movies with you in it, right?
Well, sort of. What happened? That's a good question.
That's correct. It's on the record now.
Yeah, what happened was, I was at a place in my career where I was, I had moments of glory, but I wasn't really where I wanted to be, and I was kind of sitting in my house one day, and I was like, what can I do? And I just decided, I was kind of upset and angry, and I was listening to a guy Very Tony Robbins was to say it. He was saying, get angry, get upset about where you're not, if you're not where you want to be, and then use that anger to fuel you into energy, into action, and then do massive action. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what's massive action look like in my career? And I was thinking, well, if I made 30 movies, I bet you my career would look different. And then I thought, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make 30 movies. And I'm like, now I gotta go find someone to help me make 30 movies. So I remember I'd met Will, and I knew he would use certain students in his films, and he was doing bigger films all the time. So my decision was to go see him, impress him as an actor, be in his class for 6 months, and then just tell him what we were going to do. And that's what I did. 6 months after I took his class, when I felt like I'd earned his respect as an actor, I just walked up to him after class and I said, we're going to produce 30 movies together. And he said, okay.
So is this like a serious goal for a lifetime goal, or is this, it was kind of just to get in with, on the radar? I mean, because
No,
you're going to make 30. The question I really want to know is, is this one? Or what number are we at right now?
We're on number 3 now.
Okay, we're at number 3. I want everybody watching to remember this so we can keep this going for years and years as you continue to climb the ranks here in Hollywood. So when it's like, you have made it to the top, we know where we are number-wise, and you keep coming in and update us.
Perfect. I love it. And 30 was seemed insurmountable at the time, but now that I'm on 3, I'm like, maybe I should have done more.
I love it.
Maybe 30 is good for like the next 5-6 years, and then maybe we'll redo that.
Yes.
So who knows?
More power to you. Put it out there. I mean, manifest it, right?
That's it.
There you go.
It's incredible. When I said that in my house, it seems so absurd. It seems so unimaginable. I'm like, I mean, I didn't even know what producing meant. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to produce 30 movies. And I'm like, okay, great. Then let's go produce. So the fact that I'm on number 3 right now, and it looks like we're ramping up to do like 2 to 4 films a year, is insane. It really just started from a thought, and then speaking it, and then writing it down, and then all of a sudden it becomes a reality. It's crazy how that works.
Yeah, it really is. I love how that's such a good learning tip for any actors or anybody watching this. I mean, at any point of your life, it could seem so insurmountable at a certain point, but taking small steps can lead to bigger steps, and getting there and then putting it out there, and something you thought and said sounded so crazy at one point. Now you're like, well, maybe it was too little.
That's right.
Right? So it's a teaching lesson. It's pretty inspirational and amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
You can find more about Butterfly Caught, the movie, at butterflycaughtmovie.com. They have all the social media links, all the trailers there, and all the release information as it comes due. Again, that's going to debut in early September. But if you're in New York, get those tickets for the New York Latin Film Festival. You can see it there. The New York Latino Film Festival. I want to talk to you more also about some of what you've mentioned as far as producing, acting, and some of the other stuff you started prior to coming on to Butterfly Caught, the movie, such as one of your more recent films, Trafficked.
Yes.
Where you were a part of the movie Trafficked, and it, as I'm aware, basically was based off a book from a Harvard student or professor.
You're pretty close. I'll firm up those details. What's interesting is Trafficked was done after Butterfly Caught, so it just so happens that we got Trafficked done more quickly. But after Butterfly Caught, because that's been in the can for about 3 years, believe it or not. I guess that was my proving ground for Will. Will's like, oh wow, I can introduce him to a director. He can fight for a role. He can get it, and he can deliver. Let's bring him something bigger. So then he puts this other script on my desk, and he says, read this. Sat there for a few weeks, and he's like, did you read it yet? And I'm like, oh yeah, right. Gotta read that script. And I read it and was like very affected by it. Actually, I had to put it down because I was so furious because it was based on true stories. I was just furious that this is occurring, which I didn't realize.
And what is occurring if you're just watching and you don't know about it? It's basically about a movie that explicitly details the story of 3 young women who are abducted and thrust into the vicious underworld of sex trafficking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I read that story and I actually got emotional, and to me, I no longer had I had a responsibility to make this. It wasn't like, oh, do I want to do this film? I felt like it was sort of like an obligation. Like this script had found me somehow because it knew that I could get this made. And I'd worked with the guys that did Dallas Buyers Club about 4 years prior.
Right.
And I had worked on producing their follow-up film to Dallas Buyers Club that was a film starring Anthony Mackie that never ended up going. But I still had those relationships. And I remember reading it thinking, I need to call those guys up because I think this would really resonate with them. And I called them up, and they read it and were blown away. And I had Will fly down to meet them. Sparks flew, and they came in as the first money on the project. But I'd also met the writer, and I was very impressed with the writer Siddharth Kara, who is a Harvard professor. He actually pioneered the human trafficking course at Harvard, and he teaches that currently, and he wrote the book on human trafficking. He's sort of the worldwide authority on the subject, and he works with governments around the world to enact legislation. And he came to my acting class, and he and I did a scene from Silver Linings Playbook where he played the psychologist and I played one of the main leads. So we get to know each other and work with each other, and I was just convinced I needed to make this movie, and luckily, I think the script came to me because I had the ability to get it made. It sat for about 6 years before it hit my desk, and then we were in production on that within 6 to 12 months.
So that movie was headlined by Ashley Judd, right?
That's right.
So when you're in a movie you got a big name, how does that affect you as an actor, and being with someone that's so accomplished and such a, let's say, big name? Does that change the way you feel, the way that you act, the way that the whole film set goes about the production, or is it just the same once you're on the film set? It doesn't matter that Ashley Judd is attached or not? I mean, for someone that doesn't know, people are watching, wow, Ashley Judd. I mean, everybody knows Ashley Judd.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think what made that film set so remarkable is that we had such a plethora of big talent, because we not only did we have Ashley, we had Ann Archer, who was nominated for Academy Award. We had Patrick Duffy, Elizabeth Rahm, who's seeing a real hot place in her career right now. I mean, we had so many great actors. Pardon me that if they're watching and I'm not saying their name, but we had Efren Ramirez from Napoleon Dynamite. Mm-hmm. We had the other main lead is from Powder. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? But anyways, we had so much great talent. So on set, there was a very professional tone. And it definitely does affect the movie, but I think the tone is set by that actor. And everyone on that set was so passionate and behind the cause, and we're doing the film for such a low value and what they would normally charge to be in a film, mm-hmm. That I think it might have taken away any kind of a weird feeling. Ashley came in for a brief period of time to do her scenes, and she definitely was a dominating factor on that set and definitely affected the set, I think, more than anybody else, because she came in such a whirlwind, but she did a great job, and we were very lucky to have her. But actors like Ann Archer, it's amazing. You're working with her, and you can't even imagine she's an Academy Award nominated actress. She's so down to earth, so humble. And we found that to be the case with most of the actors on the set. I can't, Brian Thompson and Efren Ramirez, these guys have prolific careers, and they couldn't have been more lovely and amazing on set. So it depends on, I guess it depends on the actor.
So the movie Trafficked, it's a drama.
It's definitely a drama. It's based on true stories. Yep. So Siddharth Kara actually flew around the world fighting human trafficking, yep. And there were three specific stories of women, and he just basically took their stories and intertwined them, mm-hmm. and traumatized it a little bit, but for the most part, these stories are true.
Yeah. Sounds like something that would be, really hit home and make you really invested and interested in the cause, because it's obviously a terrible type of thing that goes on around the world. The question I have for you about it being a drama, we talked to, you got Butterfly Caught, which is action, maybe drama. Mm-hmm. What's your genre that you prefer? Do you have a preference for doing dramas, for action? Do you want to do comedies? Are you all over? Are you open? I mean, do you have a preference?
Yeah, good question. I think that this is probably a standard answer. Depends on the script. You know, I just want to do great material, but I am drawn to dramatic. For some reason, you yank your heart out, difficult stuff to play, for whatever reason. I don't know what that is. And I think that I think my type and my essence is can be action for action stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm a goofball at home, so, you know, I can definitely definitely love comedy. But when it comes to scripts and movies, to answer your question, I definitely am drawn to dramatic, kind of meaningful pieces.
Speaking of meaningful pieces, what's coming up for you? Upcoming projects. I know I've seen that you're working on, I think, The Last Mile. You got some other movies like My Daughter Was Stolen or Sisters in Crime, The Great Race. Tell me about what you are either finished working on, is coming out, working on in the future soon.
Sure.
What do you got?
Who Stole My Daughter actually is a film I worked on at the end of last year. Came out early this year.
Okay.
And The Last Mile, which is the working title, looks like we may change that title, but that is the working title for now. That is something that we're in preparation on right now. Will be a producer on that as well.
Is that number 4?
This is number 3.
This is number 3, okay.
Yeah. We worked on 4 films together, though. Mm-hmm. I just didn't produce the last one, because The Great Race is the last film that he and I worked on together,
right?
Which was after Trafficked and Butterfly Caught, and that comes out, I think, beginning of next year. But I was an actor in that, and it's a period piece set in Alaska about the diphtheria outbreak in the early 1900s, where they had to travel 700 miles via dog sled to get the antidote and come back, and it's a beautiful story that we shot in Silverton, Colorado. But the Last Mile is going to be shot in September, and that's more like an action film that is going to be, it'll have a message. There will be a message to it as well. We have an offer out to Travis Fimmel as the main lead, and then I would be one of his nemesis. And Travis Fimmel is one of the leads of Vikings. Have you ever seen the show Vikings?
Popular show.
Yeah.
Heard of it.
Yeah. And then there's another film in there.
There's one more, right?
What was that other film?
Well, there's also Sisters in Crime.
Sisters in Crime. I filmed that 2 months ago, and that should be coming out end of this year.
So you've got a pretty good rundown of stuff in the books that's on its way and that you're working on.
Yeah.
It seems like
thank God.
Bunch of things are starting to come across. I know from other interviews you've given and what's going on more recently, you're having a greater opportunity as your career develops.
Absolutely,
which is a great thing. I want to talk to you about acting and producing in a second, but I want to know about Virtuoso. I was reading about this and something that you wanted to do. Can you tell us your thoughts about maybe this new movie or what you're creating, Virtuoso?
For sure. That's probably one of the most exciting films that I could possibly do, and it's going to be the one that kind of scares the crap out of me, which is sort of that's my measuring stick. If it doesn't scare the crap out of me, I don't really want to do it, because I feel like whatever scares me is sort of where I'm supposed to go and what's holding me back in life.
Right, it's a challenge.
Right? So the challenging thing about that film, other than doing the role, is the fact that it's something where you're going to want a name to play the lead. And I kept thinking, well, if I got to get myself to a place where my name value is higher so I can play that lead. But it's possible that we could have me play that and surround me with some bigger name actors, because it's sort of would be like my attempt to do like a Beautiful Mind movie, where I'm playing someone who actually hits his head. He's an average dude,
right? And
then all of a sudden he wakes up and he's a virtuoso at playing the guitar.
Yeah, yes. So if you're listening, what is this virtuoso? The idea is that it's someone, hits their head and then becomes incredible.
Becomes a savant.
Right, at playing the guitar?
Playing the guitar.
Playing the guitar, which when I read this in researching you, I was this is a movie I want to see.
Yeah.
That's a great premise and idea if you can develop it.
That's the one, and it's already written. It's ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's actually a real thing. This happens, and this is based on the true story of a real guy.
Sure.
and he has it's called acquired savant syndrome, and I can't remember the astronomical odds of it happening, but they're like 1 in 500 million or something ridiculous like that. But it does happen, and it happened to the guy that we based the story on. So I'm super excited about playing that story, and it's going to be a very dramatic. It'd be the most difficult role I've ever played, for sure.
Well, I'm going to be looking for this. I hope that this gets made in the near future. Virtuoso, just the idea of it for me sounds incredible. I think I've actually seen sort of this idea how in real life people can have this happen to them. I think on a 60 Minutes report or something. But that's exciting. I want to talk to you quickly about producing and acting, because you are, you're an actor but also a producer now, right?
That's right.
So what are the major differences? Do you start leaning towards maybe I like producing more? Or is it a mix? I mean, it's two separate things, but they're also kind of related. So where do you stand, and what's your thought process going forward on it?
I think what's happened now is the business has evolved over the last 30 years. And I think now where as an actor, you used to be looked down upon as if you were a hyphen, if you're doing other things. And now it's the complete opposite. If you're not a hyphen, you're not relevant, you're not really involved in the business. So I feel like, and this is just my opinion, if you're not involved in more ways than just acting or whatever you're doing, if you're directing, then you need to be involved in writing and maybe photography. But I feel like you have to really achieve great success, I feel like you need to be involved more than just your one love. I look at certain people that I am chasing, let's say, whether it's De Niro, Pacino, those are the obvious ones, or the myriad of other actors that are doing really well, we call A-list, quote unquote, and they're involved. I mean, they're in co-production deals, they're writing, they're directing, they're doing cameos in their friends' films. So I think the lesson that I took from that is I have to be moving the needle on my career. So I always say I'm an actor that produces. So my love is acting, but I am going to produce so that I can provide opportunities for myself and be involved. And not that I have to be in every film I produce, but that is sort of my goal as of right now, at this stage of the game.
Makes sense. I like the idea of having to do not just the acting, but I mean, part of it is just creating.
You have to create your own opportunities and create, and not wait for people to hand you an opportunity. That's just not how it works anymore. And there's too many people out there. It's too difficult to move your career forward if you're not involved in creating your own opportunities.
Absolutely. That's great advice. I was going to ask you, if there's people watching, we got people, maybe they're here in LA, they've just moved out, they want to be an actor, they look at you and say, wow, he's doing all this stuff, or they're interested, they're watching the Midwest, who knows, maybe they want to come out to Los Angeles or Atlanta or somewhere where there's a lot of acting going on. What's one major piece of advice you could give to anyone? I guess you've kind of given a lot of advice during this interview as far as creating your own stuff and not waiting for someone, but is there any type of advice that you want to just say right now for anybody watching?
Absolutely, yeah. I love that you're asking me this question, because I always said when I'm put in this position, I'm going to give this advice. Because I remember sitting back in Austin, Texas, on my couch before I moved out here. All my friends thought I was nuts. I just graduated from college. I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm watching Letterman, and Letterman leans over to Harrison Ford, and he said, hey, listen, it was the end of the interview, and he said, just like you, and he said, listen, there's a lot of people out there watching that would like to do something similar to what you've done in your life. What advice would you give them? And what he said was transformative for me. He said, don't dream, do. And I remember, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this show,
Whatever you want. But
I remember saying audibly, I was like, no shit. And I was literally gone 3 months later in a U-Haul. So I always said I would kind of alter that a little bit, but whenever asked, I would say, don't just dream, because I think dreaming is important. Don't just dream, do.
I like it. That's a good quote to live by. We got a little bit of time left. I want to ask you about Adam Ambruso in general, outside of acting. But finally, I can't let you go without saying thanks for being here, obviously. But
my pleasure.
How do you prepare for your acting roles? is it varied, or do you have a specific way? You know, I hear stuff about some actors prepare by, you know, a crazy amount of studying a character or studying. And some people prepare by just showing up and doing their own type of, you know, preparations. I feel like it's unique to each actor. Is there a certain way that you get ready for your roles?
Absolutely, there is a way. You know, I sort of follow the mentality of the greats, you know, that we all look to. You know, I think if you study a lot of the great actors that, you know, that we all kind of call great universally, they have similar preparation times and effort levels, and I think that's the key. You know, I've studied with a lot of the big names in acting, and once you study and you learn what they have to say, then you sort of just, you don't throw it away, but you just put it in the back of your mind and trust that it's going to influence your preparation. But I think the main thing that I look at now is that you do prepare. I think that is key. I think the more you prepare, the better your work is. And you can't over-prepare. So what I try to do is I try to just read the role over and over and over again, and then I read both parts to myself, and I just keep, and I'll make notes, and I'll let it just I'll sit on it for a while. I'll meditate on it. But I spend a lot of time preparing and living in the material and living in that character, and that's what really brings it to life. I think it's so important. And all the people that are winning awards or that you're thinking are great, they are not winging it,
right?
And they're not showing up and doing some weird preparation. They are in the material. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, I remember reading one time, and it really affected me. He reads a script like 100 times before he starts preparing, and I thought that's why he's brilliant.
It's that dedication.
If you read a script 100 times, you are in it, whether you want to be in it or not.
That's right.
So yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. Hollywood, it's been in the news even more so this year. How do you think this year or recent developments with what's going on has kind of changed the culture, or has it? I mean, it's a touchy subject, what's going on with Hollywood and stuff, but has that, you know, do you notice anything different lately as far as, you know, when you're meeting with people and different movements? And maybe not, but it just seems like it's obviously at the forefront of people's minds these days. And I got to ask you about what's going on in Hollywood.
For sure. I think you're referring to Me Too, the Me Too movement.
Yeah, partially, yeah, of course.
Okay. If in reference to the Me Too movement, I think it was bound to happen. I mean, there was so much abuse going on. It was just, I mean, it was like a time bomb. So has it been abused? For sure. Are people taking advantage of the situation? Sure. But that happens. So I think it was a necessary occurrence. It will make things better. It might make things worse for a little while because people go too far with it. Mm-hmm. But I do think it was something that needed to be addressed. And it's not a gender issue. Unfortunately, it's a male and a female issue, although we don't hear about the male counterpart part about it as much because it's embarrassing for males and sometimes career limiting or career ending if you bring it up. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's a human problem, and I think it's good that it happened. The weird positive to that is it sort of leveled the playing field. You know, me and a lot of my filmmaker friends, you know, we're trying to get into this full marketplace, right? And you know, we've been trying to butt our heads, and a lot of times when all the positions are filled, often like a football team, you know, you're on the bench wanting to get in, but you know, you got Tom Brady playing quarterback. Well, until Tom Brady gets injured, you're not going in, right? He's sort of the best in the world, right? He doesn't get
injured either.
Yeah, so
just keeps playing.
He just keeps, exactly. He's like Michael Jordan. So when you have things like that happen, like to Weinstein, all of a sudden it leaves this gaping hole for someone to fill this space, because they were, you know, I know he did a lot of wrong, but he was bringing a lot of amazing material to the marketplace, and those are the films that a lot of us artists love. We want to do those types of films. That gap of films that a lot of the studios will ignore. That it's great work. So for me and my filmmaker friends, and it's weird to say, it's kind of been good. It's sort of leveled this marketplace where we can step in and hopefully do things right? You know, not abuse our power, and you know, fill these shoes that are now, a lot of these people have been removed from Hollywood, at least temporarily. So there's a lot of opportunity for us.
Right,
there's a lot of opportunity for us.
There is opportunity. They do call Hollywood the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
Last question, and this is not about acting. When you're not acting, you're not producing, you got some spare time, which doesn't sound like you have too much of it these days, but what are your passions outside of acting, and what do you do with your spare time?
Good question. I work too much is what I do. Because I'm trying to produce and write and act, it's just a lot of time, and I'm trying to have a balanced life more, because I've got some friends saying, bro, you can't work all the time. Like, let's take a vacation. So I have a friend of mine making me go to Mexico this weekend for his birthday.
It's a tough life.
Yeah. Well, I need it, because I don't actually do these things normally. He's like, I know you don't do this. I'm making you.
It's a good friend.
He calls me every day. He's like, we're leaving at 11. Do not try to get out of this, because he knows me, because I'll work straight 7 days a week. Yeah. But I'm doing some other things. I'm building a new house, which is requiring a lot of time.
Okay.
Because I'm building at the top of the Hollywood Hills, which is extremely time intense, and sometimes I'll work during the weekend on that. But I stay in shape. I love to work out. I love to hike. I love to go to the beach. I love to have fun as well, and I'm trying to bring that in more and balance more. And I love to travel. And I just haven't been traveling that much over the last couple of years, because career's been changing and taking off, which, thank God. But I do know I need to balance that more often. Yeah, for sure.
That's a good one. Okay, guys. We started this off with Adam Ambruso's new movie coming out in early September, Butterfly Caught Movie. Learn more about it again at butterflycaughtmovie.com. They can find you all over social media, Instagram and Twitter at
Adam Ambruso, Ambruso.
That is here. You can find me at Mike Rippe. Don't forget, everybody, to follow, like, comment, and subscribe to the Popcorn Talk Network, so we can have more actors and actresses just like Adam that join us weekly for you. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget, like he said, don't just dream, but do. We'll see you next time on Popcorn Talk.
Thanks, guys.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.